Okay, so good evening, Igail, and this is March 10th. It's Wednesday night, our normal 5 o'clock Pacific time call. Today's topic is an interesting one that we've got a lot of experts here about exercise and the place of exercise in our business and in life in general. And hopefully these good doctors and even Jackie Boyle in Australia will chime in and tie this into our unique product. So who wants to start off the discussion?
Well, I'm going to defer to my younger partner.
Okay, Ken, it's up to you, Ken. Go for it. I don't hear you. Okay, I don't hear you.
Got to unmute your, there you go.
Keeps muting me.
No, go ahead.
Are we good?
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed now because Jackie's here.
No.
Because she's knowledgeable. The thing about exercise to me is that it's highly underrated for many reasons. We're dropped into a life where we begin without doing much exercise. So you sit in school for how many years? The teacher telling you to sit still. I've even had school children where the teacher had those fit balls for kids to sit on. In one classroom, they found them great because the kids could spend off extra energy by bouncing and moving around. In the other classroom, they eliminated them because the bouncing bothered the teacher. And so that's how, it's frustrating. But if you think about when you sit, what happens is you flex your knees, right? So your hamstring muscles are tightened. You flex your hips, so your hip flexors are tightened. Your back gets tight and your abdominals get weak. And a lot of people, when they, especially if they have sitting occupations, when they stand up, they look like they're not all the way out of the chair yet. The muscles are holding them in a semi-sitting position. And that is really good for chiropractic business. So we're grateful for that in one sense. I actually had the opportunity to do a health talk to a group of young figure skaters. And one of the tests that I like to do with kids, well, with anybody, is to ask them, are you able to squat flat-footed without falling over backwards? And, it was about 50% could do it, only. And that's age 9 to 14. That's how stiff they were. That's a tight back, and that's future problems. So, that's one of those things that's we should really change, and we start out that way, and we start out a little on the lazy side. And of course, our world's set up for convenience. So there's very little I can say that hasn't been said 1,000 times. But, we have automated car washes, garage door openers. People drive around looking for the nearest parking stall to the front door, and on it goes like that. There is an interesting exercise. I don't know if you know this one, Jackie, but I read it somewhere, and it said, you're flexible if you can lie on the floor on your back and get up to a standing position without using your hands. And I cannot do that. My wife can, but I cannot. So that's an interesting little test. I did look up, and again, Ron is way ahead of us all. I did look up the benefits of walking. And a 30-minute minimum walk per day, I've got a list of 35 serious illnesses that prevents. And researched. It's not a fantasy. Things like prevent up to 50% of heart disease, 25 to 30% of stroke, congestive heart failure reduces it by 63%, risk of breast cancer 60%, on and on it goes. Disease from gallbladder 20%, decrease of all causes of mortality by 67% in the general population. There's 35 of those, and I'm sure there's more. So exercise is not what we do necessarily for fun, although it should be fun. It is a huge health thing. And I look at it as if, there we are. I look at it as if we should be doing all the free stuff first, right? Emulin is an amazing product. Climax is an amazing product. We've talked about food. We've talked about the toxins out of our diet. We've talked about eliminating the bad fats and reducing stress. And now we're talking about exercise, and that almost completes the circle. These are all things that don't necessarily have to cost you money and are the foundation for your health, upon which you can add Climax, you can add Emulin, you can add other things. But without that base of exercise, stress reduction, good rest, all of those things, the results won't be so good. And so these are free things. Free or just changes in your life. So my bottom line is both health and enjoyment. There's many different reasons. Sport, of course. If you're into a competitive sport, you'll risk your life and limb for it. I have a rebuilt knee on that account. And it's not always about health when you're doing sports. I had a aging bodybuilder who's been doing steroids for 30 years in my practice today, and it wasn't a pretty picture. He's a very nice man, but that's not a health choice. And we all tend to work towards our strength. I'm probably talking too long. Why don't you add something, Ron?
Okay. Well, I think to piggyback on what you're saying, I'm thinking about my little great-granddaughter who just turned a year old, and she took her first steps and fell down like a drunken sailor. So she's beginning her walking career quite young, although I had a son who started walking at 7.5 months. So she's a little bit behind him. But one of the things that we talked about stress last week, and walking is one of those things that alleviates stress probably quicker than anything I can think of. We can have a very, very busy day, a very, very stressful day, a lot of activity going on, and maybe sitting around by the computer way too long, maybe not eating perfectly all the time. But if we get our walking shoes on and we go out the door, and we did today, and it was cold and it was snowing, and we did a good 35-minute walk because we had a short time. Usually it's about an hour. But just that alone, you get about a mile down the road and you can just feel things disappear. All the stress, all the things of the day, we get an opportunity I always walk with Donna as a rule. So we get a chance to talk about what's going on in her world in the kitchen and what's going on in my world sitting by the computer talking with potential clients and all that. But I think it all starts for us every single day. And I asked Donna the other day how long we've been doing this. And we can't kind of put a finger on it, but it's been probably over a decade. But every morning before we put our feet on the ground, we are lying flat on our back in the bed. And we start with today it was 8 minutes, sometimes it's a little longer. But we start by just pulling the knees up into the chest and grabbing your hands on the knees and pulling up and holding those positions, and I'll talk about the other positions, for at least 30 seconds. You don't want to jerk, you want to just hold and keep putting a little bit more pressure on, and it just loosens that back up, because when you've been lying still all night, sleeping hopefully, and not having to get up because we're now taking Emulin and we're taking Climax, so we don't have to make those trips to the bathroom in the middle of the night anymore. So you're getting a good night of sleep, but your body stiffens up, and especially as we get older. So the thing we always do, we'll wake up early to make sure we get the time to do that. Pull the knees up. And then once we've done that, then we put the knees back down, make a tent shape with one knee, and put the other leg as straight up as we can possibly get it to get a really good hamstring stretch going on. And then we'll hold that for 30 seconds, and we'll switch to the other leg and do that. When that's done, we start with the left foot, we take the foot and put it up into our groin like a frog style and pull that up. So we're getting the quadriceps stretched out. And we'll go back and forth side to side. And it goes through a whole series of about 10 different stretches, and we hold them like holding the arm across like that, stretching out that arm and stretching out the other side. It is so critical to do that, but do it long enough so that the muscles warm up. And then when it's time to get out of bed, we literally bounce out of bed and we hit the floor, and we're not unsteady on our feet. And a lot of people will take tumbles because years ago, I used to do a lot of driving for the business I was in the field of architecture, and I drive 2 hours to go to visit a client, and you get out of the car, and just that time sitting in that position without moving, your back is a little tight, your legs are a little out of balance, and as we get older, it's worse yet. But after a night's worth of sleep, get that stretching done before you even do that. Another good exercise that's really good, and we've got to get back into it, we kind of got away from it, and that's planking. It's a really, really good exercise for the core. Another one that Don and I will both do too is just balancing and getting our balance good. Standing on one leg is really a good thing to be doing, because it's good for the mind, but it's also good for the core to keep that body firm and tight, because I think we can get very unstable on our legs as we get older as well. But if we're stretching, if we're exercising, and that can take all kinds of different forms. It can be biking, it can be swimming, running. I'm not a big runner. I'm not a big fan of runner because of the damage it does to the knees. I did a lot of it in high school. That was mostly sprinting though, not long distance stuff. So it was over quite quick, and it was quite painless actually. Anyway, there's a lot of things we can do. There's a great website that I found today, and if we're just starting to think about what we really need to do in terms of exercise, go look up WIKIHOW, W-I-C-K or WIKIHOW.com, Wicca like Wikipedia, wikihow.com/exercise. And it's really, really good because they'll give you a whole range of different exercises that you can do with pictures. It's very graphic, and I'm a very graphic, I like a lot of pictures, but then it takes it from the beginner level to a more advanced level, and then to a really advanced. So beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and it depends on how long you do each kind of different thing. And it talks about walking, how many calories you burn at 4 miles an hour walking for an hour, you're going to burn 400 calories. So that's a really, really good thing. So I think all these things that we can do, but boy, stretch. I can't tell you strongly enough how important it is to do, and start as young as you can start. And if that's at 70 years old or 50 years old, start stretching now, because it's going to benefit you from if you've had I've got a brother-in-law just going through double knee replacement, and he has not kept himself fit, and he's overweight, and he's got a lot of issues going on. He's not steady on his feet. He's way overweight, and he's never exercised. His recovery is way slower. If I had to have this happen, my recovery would be really quick. And I don't know if I talked about it on this call or not, but back in late October, I took a tumble when I was walking downhill, stepped on a nut, went down hard, and within 2 days, I was back walking 4 miles without any pain. Now, thank you, Emulin, and that was before Climax came into the picture, but it was because I had that strong core body and good eating habits and previous exercising long-term that I was able to do that. So back to you there, Ken.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I often say to patients, seems to be a gear between your legs and your mind. And as you're walking along, your mind just rolls over at a slow speed, and you sort a lot of things out. And walking's probably the one exercise that humans were designed to do in the first place. And actually running, because our feet and legs are set up like springs. And that's how pygmies can chase down antelope, because they are more efficient over longer haul. And I agree about stretching. I do 20 minutes in the morning. We have a stairway between the upstairs bedroom and downstairs where the Climax is and the coffee lives. And I've got about a 20-minute series of stretches that I do in the stairway. And the stairway is a wonderful apparatus. And so, yeah, couldn't agree with you more.
Another free one.
Yes, yes. One of the things that I thought I'd touch on is that we all like to work towards our strengths. So if you're an attractive live woman, you're going to want to go to yoga and stretch and do all that stuff. If you're a guy, chances are you want to go to the gym and work your upper body to get those big biceps. And we don't work towards our weaknesses. At the gym I go to, it's getting better, but it's probably once every 3 days I see another man on the stretching floor. Lots of women, but very few. And so I think we need to do a combination of things. We need flexibility, no question. We need aerobic capacity, no question. And we need to do some high intensity exercise to really race up the heart, assuming it's healthy. And we need to do strength exercise because muscles are the motor that burn the calories. I probably mentioned in a prior chat that when you're at the gym and working hard, and even if you're pushing big weights or something, you really don't burn that many extra calories. But what you do is you create a demand. So for those of us that enjoy eating, you would like your body to be not a Prius. You want your body to be something that's a little less efficient calorie-wise. And so having some muscle definitely raises your baseline metabolism. Not only that, but it is a little bit like a rainy day fund. I had a patient who had a colonoscopy mishap, and he got a serious infection that was undetected and went on for a long time. And a significant number of people lose their lives with that infection, but he scavenged off about 20 pounds of muscle because he had it. And so he was able to survive on that. And Jackie, do you want to chime in on anything? You got?
I've always got lots to say, Ken. That's probably half my problem. But look, as I said, we've had 30 plus years in the industry, and it's been from my probably passion was my husband's been in the elite area, and he's been an elite athlete, coach, and continues to do that. And he's an educator. He works out he's a lecturer at a university. And I just, one of my biggest passions has been throughout our facility that we had was for just a general run-of-the-mill person that came into the facility that needed it. And there were key areas that we really needed to look at and assess first. And I don't think that, and it all comes back to just lifestyle choices, and really starts at your feet. So we would always send people off to go and get an assessment on their feet and make sure that they're aware that they're a really active person, that was what was supporting their system anatomically. So if they had shoes that were really old shoes, go and get your feet assessed and buy the appropriate shoes that are going to give you the arch support that you need as your body changes. Because you can do some damage, as you know, if anatomically, if the hips are out of line, your lower back, it just affects everything right up through the whole chain. That would be my first point of call for people when I looked at things, and the lifespan of the shoes. So we would tell them to change them at least every 3 months if they were an active exercise person, because they needed to, because the effectiveness of them wasn't there. But I agree with you in the stretching, but stretching for me, I would get people to go out and buy a Taekwondo belt, which would cost you probably $2 or something like that, for the ability to be able to lay flat on your back. So from the point of your skull to the base of your tailbone, you're able to lay completely in a flat line, and use the Taekwondo belt as an extension of your arms. So at any point in time, you could keep your shoulders and the whole of your back and all of your spine completely flat and level on the ground, and use the belt over the top of your feet and use that as an extension of stretch to be able to get the mobility and the flexibility through the hamstrings, through the hips, through the hip flexors, and it was perfect. Then just hold it for 10 seconds and not overstretch, because some people do damage by overstretching. Breathing, we always taught them breathing exercises, and even just sitting in the chair, just basic yoga, breathing exercises, and just to tailor it to them. So one thing that we did learn we had quite a few dementia patients, and I wish that we had Emulin then, because we lost a couple of dear friends. but we sent off to the Institute of Sport, and we sent off these people's details, and they said, look, cardiovascular exercises has been proven for anybody that has got dementia, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's on the onset, rather than to do strength exercises, to do cardiovascular, because it's keeping the blood flow going around through the body more efficiently, and we're not actually building testosterone, especially in males. We're not provoking that, because dementia, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, they get quite aggressive, or they can get aggressive. So the cardiovascular actually proved that it would slow down that process by keeping the cardiovascular exercise included in there. But you know, for my oldies, and when I say oldies, I'm going my age, 52 onwards, but it was just that friendship, that social aspect, the mental, the emotional, the cardiovascular, the strength, the flexibility, the mobility, but we would tailor it to them that to do little exercises so they were able to get the mobility through to open up a cupboard, to be able to bend down and pick up something from the lowest of the cupboards in the kitchen, to be able to get in and out of their car, which people don't think about, like putting one leg into the car instead of sitting their bottoms down on the car and then bringing both feet around into the car together. So exercise really is super important. I find that walking sometimes for some people is really difficult because they haven't got that ability to have that load for whatever reason. So swimming becomes a good exercise, or walking in the pool where they've got that weight-bearing assistance through there. But I think the biggest thing in exercise with it is to develop it as a group, to get an exercise buddy so that you are getting the friendship and the social aspect out of it, so you're more inclined to commit to it and then to go with somebody else, and you're getting the confidence that comes out in that person because they feel better about themselves, but just trying not to push them past where they're comfortable at whatever level that they're at, because we're not all elite athletes. We've got young athletes coming through, but if we're looking at the mainstream people, we just want them getting to move, and flexibility is a huge part for them to do that, and they can do that from home, as is strength exercises. So if they can't go to a gym, or they don't choose to, they're not comfortable, you can use a park bench to do exercises, push-ups off your knees, you know. And planking, when you're talking about planking, sometimes it can scare the daylights out of people because they'll see planking on the internet and they Google everything and they're saying they've got to do it on their toes and on their forearms. Planking can be done at different levels. So you can do it off your knees and still maintain a really strong core and a nice strong back. You know, keep your chin tucked down so you're not putting any load on that lower back. So it's, I think if anyone's starting out, if I can finish off on this note, make sure that you find somebody that is qualified, that hasn't just come in and they've got their Cert 4 and they're all gung-ho and they're at the gym and I can do this. You need an experienced person that has got some life's experience and they know what they're talking about. So do your homework when you go and source out someone if you're needing some assistance from someone, because they will either make or break you, and they can do a lot of damage to you if they decide to take you down a pathway that your body's not ready for. Just not physically, but mentally and emotionally. So that's my part.
Very good points, Jackie. I agree 100%. And one of the things that I've been really fortunate, my wife Donna and I both motivate each other to go out and walk. There may be days when I've got a lot to do in the office and I'm tied up doing that. And she says, "Are we going for a walk today, Ron?" Or she's busy in the kitchen and I'm ready to jump out and go and do some walking. And so we counterbalance each other. We encourage each other, and then we're together doing it. So I think that's an important thing too, because there's so many spouses that one's off doing this and the other one's off doing this, and it's just a good time of togetherness too, and it's been real helpful for us.
I think there's two things you can look at too, like for people that are sitting so sedentary, and for us that because we are becoming, we're behind a computer a lot of the time, that if you can think about being like a puppet and someone has a string on the end of your head and you literally pull that up so you're lengthening your spine. And to take the load off, if you get your hands and place it and put your fingers in underneath your bottom and push yourself upright and pull your shoulder blades back. It's like someone's pulling the shoulder blades together on the inside of your back. So you're just lifting and elevating, but you're pushing yourself upright. So you know what it feels like to have a nice, long, straight spine. Tuck the chin down not right down, but just tuck it down so someone's literally pulling you up through the head. And it takes the load off of your back. And it's just to do tiny little exercises like this to lengthen down through these sternocleidomastoid muscles, because they're all attached to the shoulder, to the neck, up into your head, the same to the other side. Tuck it down. Just do a rotational twirl with your head, because you'll be surprised
Don't go backwards with that rotation in front of chiropractors.
I don't mean like do a massive one. It's really just stretching these muscles, because, you know, what do we call it now? There's now the text neck, isn't there? That's the latest thing that's out on because we're all sitting with this forward all the time. So to be able to stretch sideways and just roll your shoulder back and let it hold.
An easy thing to do is just do isometrics. Just push against
Absolutely.
yourself in different directions, forward, back, but don't rotate backwards, because that's the one dangerous area for the vertebral artery. Dr. Ken, what do you think?
I don't mean back like this, John. I mean like literally it's just rolling it, bringing it back around into that position, because you're really just trying to lengthen
that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, Jackie, for all.
Sorry, not my call.
Listen, it's terrific. Ken and Ron, anything else you want to add? We're about half.
Oh, I got lots.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I'm aware of, well, I've got a whole bunch of disconnected stuff that's arisen. People come in and they often say, and this has to do with Ron stretching in the morning and other things, their back or their neck or something is gone. And they say, what happened? I didn't do anything. And the best analogy I can think of is that it's like walking towards a cliff, and the first 8 steps don't hurt at all, then the 9th one kills you. So we can tighten up with no symptoms to a critical point. And then I've had at least a half a dozen people brushing their teeth injure their neck, where they go to get the back teeth and tilt their head over and it's done. And that's simply because they don't do enough stretching for that. The other approach that I like is, and best not to take me directly, but I like a martial arts approach. Because the martial arts people always look for their weakness. Where is my weakness? We're so easily drawn to our strengths. If your strength is power, you want to do more power stuff. If your strength is flexibility, you want to do more flexibility stuff. If your strength is cardio, you want to do more cardio stuff. I had one patient who had a really bad shoulder from playing too much squash. And I told him that he had to lay off squash. And he said, so badminton? And I said, no, get a bicycle. And on like that. People, they have their things that way. And I think another thing that's important to know is to know your own personal nature. Are you an underworker or an overworker? Because a lot of people they're uncomfortable if they get out of breath, or they begin to sweat, or if they're a little bit stiff the next day. And those are perhaps underworkers. Excuse me. And then there's the overworkers who just, you can't stop them. And we have to temper those people, because they tend to produce overuse injuries. They'll try to train through things. I've had runners who use Advil before they go out for their run when they're not looking after their problem. Another point is that for elite athletes, I've treated a number of them, a few NHL players and things like that. So many of their injuries that wash them out at the higher levels of sport come from poor training and poor injury management when they were younger. So it's really important for kids, if they've got a problem, get it sorted out, because those things tend to carry forward and you develop a weakness that will wash you out. And so I can't emphasize that enough for parents. Got to look after those kids. Kids are nothing but potential. They're pure potential, and they sacrifice it along the way. We all did. And you don't want to see your kids giving up unnecessary potential. Another point that I wanted to make, Jackie, you probably know more about this than I do, but women are stronger than men. They're something like 50 or 20% stronger pound for pound. And so the problem with them training, I seem to have something up on my screen. Are you guys seeing that? No. Okay. The problem for women is that pound for pound, they can contract more muscle fibers on a given nerve impulse. However, their connective tissue isn't as massive as men's. So women are more subject to overuse, tendinitises, joint problems. And so when they're training, particularly if they're strength training, they need to go a little slower and give those connective tissues time to adapt to the load. They take longer than the muscles. The muscles will hypertrophy quicker than the connective tissue. So that's just simply another point. We need to talk about hydration. It's great to do things that can be measured. I have a racing kayak, and I have a route that I paddle, and I time myself. And I'm always trying to get just a little bit faster than last time. And when you have that, you can press yourself a little bit. And there'll be those days that you don't feel like going, but lots of times you say, let's see if I can do better. And so when you have something that you can measure, you have a bit of a handle on how you're doing. And so I would say that. Do you guys have anything else?
Well, I think too, the thing we talked a bit about last week, and Debbie brought it up, and that's about breathing is so critical too, as we're working out, continue to breathe. It's so easy to just focus on what we're doing without breathing. And the muscles need oxygen. So we've got to do some really deep breathing. In fact, on my walk, I thought about you, Debbie, because what I do for about a city block, which is about 100 yards, is deep breath in through the nose and then exhale through the mouth, very, very slowly and rhythmically. And boy, I'll tell you, you can feel the mind clearing up as you do that. You feel the energy. We've got one particular route that we do. It's pretty steep hill, and about one city block, we're going up probably 30 feet or so. And if it's at the end of our walk, at the end of 4 miles, you tighten up in the low back a little bit more. The glutes tighten up a little bit more. And just start the deep breathing before that hill. I did that the other day, and that made that hill so much easier going up. So I think that's a critical thing. As we're sitting here talking too, we're all sitting in chairs, most of us, I think. And I do anyway. I tend to crunch over. So we're breathing through the top part of our lungs and not from the diaphragm. And I thought about that so much this past week when I'm walking too, to put that stomach out when you're taking a deep breath so you fill all of the lungs. And then you're also working your lymphatic system when you're walking. So there's so many good reasons to walk, and as you probably be guessing by now, I love walking. I'm passionate about it. I've been doing it for sneaking up on 50 years now, and it really pays off. When I look at my peers, they can't compete with us at all. There's very few couples that we see when we're walking either. It's usually the ladies out there walking. The husbands are, I don't know where they're at, but they're not out there walking with their spouses. So ladies, drag your husbands out, drag your partner out there and get out there and do it together. It's a good time to talk and just catch up on the day's activities. And another thing that can easily be done, just sitting at your desk. If your lymphatic system is not moving, which it isn't sitting at your desk, there's a spot. If you can reach it, your thumb on the center of your chest and your middle finger out to the edge of your shoulder, out to the rotator cuff thing, and then come right underneath that collarbone halfway and start working on that. That's the lymphatic drain. And that's really a good thing to work. And if you just put your hand on there and rub a little bit, if that's tender, boy, I'll tell you, you might want to do some rebounding or walking or swimming or getting into some cardiovascular moving, because you've got to drain the lymph system. And we can take things that help our immune system, and we've got it. So, but we've got to still move the body, and that's the whole point of exercise.
The other thing I like to have is toys. Toys are great. Excuse me, I'm just fighting off cold.
You just went there?
Bicycle, kayak. Yeah, Lego. No, bicycle, kayak, windsurfers, all of those things that you just can't wait to get out and do. And that takes you away. It's a form of cross-training. And if you want to improve at any of those sports, then You can go to the gym and train specifically for those sports. It's wonderful. I've got a new kayak training protocol at the gym that's working out very well. And cross-country skis, Ron, be very good in your part of the world.
I used to do quite a bit of it.
Yeah. So, and we have a way of giving those up as the years go by. And I'm clinging to my toys.
You know, I listen to both you guys, and you know, something that's really come through, it's measurable. Everything needs to be quantitative and measurable, and it doesn't matter as we age. We need to be very much aware on what's changing in our body and adapt that to what we're capable of doing. But you know, we are all capable of doing something. That our breathing is a big thing, but it's coming back to the psychological factor too. So the psychological factor, what we hang on to that we're scared of, or if we have been injured, that a lot of the time, and as what Debbie spoke of last week, and I know it's a huge passion of hers, and it is as many of us, that the importance of knowing how to actually let go of the past and let go of things that you're hanging on to, because the retention that you hold inside of you that can actually damage you physically when you are trying to be moving forward as an athlete or moving forward just in life in general with exercise can actually create an injury. So when you are looking at elite athletes, they will take them back to the reason why. So they'll send them off to the psychologist, psychiatrist, and work out what is it that is their balking point, like what's stopping them. And usually it is always something psychological. So if they can get to the core of that, then everything else just opens the floodgates up and everything becomes so much easier.
I experienced
Jackie,
that with my
you just
wife.
opened my floodgates. I have so many things that come into mind.
I was wondering when you would.
Yeah. I'm just waiting here. No, I just have a couple things to say now. I'll save most of it for next week. But what you were saying, Jackie, about making sure you've got a qualified trainer to do these things. Some people will go into a class, for example, a yoga class, and they'll be asked to do these poses that they're really not capable of doing. My oldest daughter she has a physical therapy degree, but she's also working on her professional yoga therapist diploma, and that will become, so yoga can become a therapy, to like a resource that physical therapies, doctors, chiropractors can actually use, because they can't teach to do the yoga, but they can send someone to a yoga therapist who knows the capability of the body, and then can then give them the right kind of yoga poses to do. But the other thing, I don't think anybody, I was a couple minutes late getting on, but Tai Chi is a wonderful exercise up to all ages. I've taught Tai Chi to little kids. I've taught it to seniors. It can be done in a chair, so they just maybe can do the arm movements if they can't stand. And it can be taken to whatever level, because your stance with a bent knee, actually, I heard Tony Robbins talking about static holds are better than, like, instead of going up and down with, doing squats, static poses, bend your knees and just hold it, is actually as much, as beneficial as the up and down. And that's kind of what the whole set of Tai Chi is about. And it's also a very good stress reliever. It's something, it helps memory, because it takes about probably, I usually look at around 15 or more hours to teach a set of Tai Chi in my classes. And it can take maybe only 6 minutes to complete the whole set, but it's all memory. They have all those movements. So it's a mental exercise as well as the physical exercise. Plus, and I'll get into more next week, but it also helps open up the meridian flow. And Ron, when you were talking about the point for the lymphatic, that's probably an acupressure point that you're accessing as well, because they will be tender when they're blocked and they need to be open. So it's funny with the leg muscles that improve with Tai Chi. I had just a quick little story. We went skiing after I'd been teaching Tai Chi for a while, and my husband at that point was playing hockey and, fairly active. And we're skiing, and all of a sudden I see him stopped halfway down the hill. And neither one of us had skied very much, but I kind of stopped and I said, what's going on? Everything okay? And he said, yeah, my legs are just kind of burning. And I said, oh, really? And off I went, because mine weren't. So I thought that was, I mean, it sneaks up on you because you're doing it a little bit all the time, and you're really getting that really good muscle without realizing. And then, of course, the metabolism and everything is improving. But yeah, Tai Chi is a really nice exercise for all ages.
I think it's really important too to make a long-term commitment to whatever you choose to do, whatever your passion is, whether it's, and I wish Dr. Dave could have made it on, because Dave was a professional athlete in the senior division. He's done some remarkable things. But whatever your passion is, whether it's swimming, kayaking, walking, Tai Chi, make a commitment to do it. Don't just do it for a couple of days and say, oh, I done that, and then go on to something else. I think making a commitment to whatever it is in life is really, really a critical thing.
Something that I talk to people about in the practice, especially people with training problems, is I say, so is this a speed bump or a stop sign? Because oftentimes when you're training, when you're doing things, something hurts. And you may well have discovered a problem that pre-existed your training. And that's a speed bump. You get your problem fixed and you carry on. Unfortunately, a lot of people use them as stop signs. And I hear again and again, oh, I can't do that anymore. This used to get really sore. And they find the walls closing in on them when they needn't do that. So tending to those little injuries, tending to those training problems, and keep going.
And I have to say, if you guys all looked around at the screens, for those that you can see, how many of you are actually sitting up anatomically straight? just.
I'm going to put it on the gallery so we can see. No, so you can't hide anymore, guys.
It is good. It is good to have a slight down tilt at the front of the chair. That way it leans you towards your desk and there's a natural reaction to straighten up. And it's the equivalent of sitting on an exercise ball.
Guys, I want to just welcome Steve Hemsley. We haven't seen you on a call before. You're calling from Australia? Speak up, we can't hear you.
Yes, John, I am.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you contribute a little bit with your background?
Well, I've only just come onto the call, so I've only just watched the end of it. But I was introduced to iGalen right at the very beginning. I'm actually a pharmacist. But for about 25 odd years, I've been very interested in alternative therapies and nutrition and stuff like that. And it's really encouraging to hear all of the people like Debbie, Ron, Ken, yourself, and Jackie, all of the different modalities that really contributes to a healthy lifestyle. So it's certainly been a long journey. I have found that the Climax and the Emulin are two products that probably had as profound benefits to people that I've seen any product have. But it's not the panacea. You certainly do have to do these other things, and the exercise components are in there as well as the emotional stuff, because there's a lot of people out there dealing with a lot of very serious emotional traumas. It could be financial trauma, family trauma, and that's all a big part of it as well. So I look forward to being able to be on these calls a bit more frequently and contribute if I can.
Do I have it correctly that you're a very serious kayaker and
That was in my other life. I won 2 world championships in a sport called canoe polo. Right. It was widely published all over the world. I'm sure everybody's heard of it.
Right.
But it was a passion that I had for about 15, 20 years. And I was lucky to be involved where Australia won the first world championships in the UK, and then we won it in Australia, and then I had to grow up. But it's a fascinating sport. If you can imagine wheelchair basketball, instead of a basketball court, imagine it's a swimming pool, and there are 5 crazy people paddling around trying to tip each other over and get the ball off them and throw it in the net up the other end. A bit of a combination of ice hockey, American football, basketball, and soccer. great fun because you don't actually hurt yourself. You only fall on water, and you're tackling another person's kayak rather than hurting another person. Which, when I see the ice hockey guys or the American football, I just don't know how they're even walking.
For me, watching your footy or whatever you guys call that American rule or Aussie rules football,
Aussie rules.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they don't bother having any protection, so they're even more nuts.
Yeah, I played rugby for years, so anyway, whatever. Well,
Stephen, I want to say hi. It was nice to see you in person. I was a pharmacist for 21 years, and I've now had a holistic practice for 22. So next week, if you're in, you'll hear a little bit more about the emotional stuff. That's my passion right now.
Well, I'll definitely make an attempt to get on board. It's one thing trying to transition from an existing career that you have is very, very difficult. I congratulate you on you being able to do it. I'm looking at iGalen as being that sort of like maybe giving me the capacity to be able to move away from my normal full-time job and evolve into a similar sort of situation like yourself, where I can pull in these complementary modalities. And certainly with what I've learnt in my experience with pharmacy, it's not the solution. It's just a band-aid, and we need to be looking at solutions as Dr. Rajan. It's probably one of the things that encouraged me the most when I first saw the information about iGalen, that the CEO was a pharmacist and he was talking my language. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, I always tell people when they say, well, you used to be a pharmacist, I say, yes, pharmacy is a good place to be from.
Well, we just have a different spelling now. F-A-R.
F-A-R, yes.
Well, hey, so guys, thanks so much for getting on the call. As Debbie has mentioned, next week, her topic is going to be the meridian release as well as emotional release that she specializes in. And so please get your team and guests onto that call. Ken and Ron, again, thank you for all you do. Jackie, thanks for all your contributions, and Debbie and Stephen. Unless anybody has any other questions right now, we're 10 minutes to 6, so we're almost 50 minutes in. And Jana wants to say thank you to everybody. So thanks, Jana, for being on the call as well. Any questions for anybody?
John, it's Adrian Kremler speaking.
Hi, Adrian.
I just had a question for Ken, because he said he had a paper or a list of benefits from walking the benefits of walking, how it decreases decreases the effects of different diseases and illnesses.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can publish that on one of the pages.
Yeah, I'll see if it's out of a book from a guy by the name of Dr. James Chestnut, and he's a research addict. He'd rather read research than watch the news or read the paper or anything. And so he never says anything he can't completely back up. But he's got a 2-page list of things. He doesn't annotate it there. I'm sure there's annotations in the back of the book. But I can say that there will be backup for what he says. So I'll see if I can find a way to post that. I'll post that on your site, Debbie.
Perfect. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, everyone. That was an incredible call. Very informative. Very, very interesting. And
we'll get you on one of these, Adrian, with all your sports expertise.
Yeah, one of these days I'll chime in.
Okay, good enough. All right, guys. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to stop the recording, but feel free to interact for a while yet, because I'm not going to turn it off. So the recording is being stopped. Yes, it is.